So Ross, we finally got you in the hot seat for the Ask Ross questions. So it's bike shed editor Ross Sharp, also show bike curator, and these are the questions that people have submitted from all the social media.
This is very professional, G. This is like being on Parkinson or something.
Are you ready?
Yeah, ready as I am.
Ready to go?
As ready as I can be.
Okay, so the first question is, when did you start riding motorcycles and how?
Friends had a Z50, little Honda, and I would have been 6 or 7, something like that. Little 3-speed semi-auto thing around the garden. Might have crashed into a swimming pool and might have written it off when I was about 9.
Right, nice. The next question comes from SIRCHARGEVLOGS. He wants to know what your first bike was, but that was your mate's bike, wasn't it?
That was a mate's bike. So my first bike was a 1988 Kawasaki KX250, which is the obvious choice for every 12-year-old. I saved up all my money.
Touch the ground?
Yeah, it's mowing lawns, washing cars, doing all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Marched into the local motocross dealership, Chris Elderfield's near Guildford. And I had my mum with me, and she just finished her job at a posh estate agent, so she's all dressed up in a frock, and I walked in, 12 years old. What's that one? Oh, that's a KX250. It's green, it's got pink grips. Do you deliver?
Great.
Yep, we deliver. So there's a deposit, you can have the rest when you deliver them. That was my first bike.
Mate.
And no, I couldn't start it. I had to get my mate Danny around to start it.
Could you touch the ground?
Just use a stool to get on it.
Nice. When did you start working at the bike shed and how?
Oh, it feels like about 1896. It's a long time ago. 2013? 13, 14. I think I met Dutch and Vicky, mentioned to Dutch about doing a bit of writing stuff. Before and after work, used to do a bit of writing, doing all the features when we used to write together. And then it kind of grew from there until the point when one day I had a chat with Dutch and said, look, this either needs to be a proper thing or I've got to go and do some other proper things. And so scrabbled around, reached down the back of the sofa, found some money and said, let's make it a proper thing.
What did you do before life at the shed?
Quite a few things. So directly before, I worked at an engineering company and we had a historic race team. So I managed a fleet of Grand Prix cars and pre-war race cars. Prior to that, I worked in publishing and advertising. But I've always been around cars and bikes to a degree.
Okay, next question. What is motorcycling for you?
For me, it's an escape. It's an escape from people, from stress, from work, from day-to-day life.
What's your favourite type of motorcycle?
Favourite type? Genre or actual specific type?
Let's go with genre. We'll get down into specific types later.
Okay, just anything off-road.
Off-road?
Off-road, yeah.
What's your favourite bike you've ridden?
Oh.
Cajiva?
I do like my Cajiva. Favourite bike I've ridden, ever? I don't know, I really enjoyed the FTR 750 the other day.
Yeah.
But I can also remember my first motocross bikes, and I think it'd be my first motocross bikes, to be honest. Yeah, after the KX250, I realised that I was still 12 and I bought a KX100, and that was great fun. So I'm not sure.
Okay. What's the best bike you have owned and wish you never sold?
Well, luckily, I'm not very good at selling the bikes. I just accumulate them. I regret selling the 2 Super Tenerés I had. They were shit at the time, but I wish I'd kept them and done them up and converted them to with a TD M850 engines. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think anything I've sold has been a mistake. Because I've always either replaced it with something better or slightly different, or made a profit and been happy. So, what is your favourite engine on a bike? The Ducati L Twin's hard to beat, isn't it? Yeah. In air-cooled form. Okay, air-cooled L Twin. Yeah, I've had, like the old had SS's. Quite a few, and they've got them in the Cajivas. Yeah, I really like the parallel twin, the CP2 engine in the Yamahas and the XSR MT-07s, but I don't know, that death rattle of the clutch on a
I'm with you there.
Air-cooled Duke.
What was your first custom build?
That'd be my 1966 Honda CL77 that was in your shop for a while, the blue one.
It was, yeah. Beautiful.
That wasn't supposed to be a custom build, that was supposed to be a restoration job. And then I got a bit carried away, and that's sort of how I led into this job.
That bike was at the second show, wasn't it? You were showing it there.
But before I even knew what Bike Shed was or existed, I was looking at custom bikes on Pinterest and thinking, well, I could just slightly turn this restoration into a desert sleddy sort of thing, and that's how it's all happened.
It's a handsome bike. Where have you travelled on a bike?
So, 10 years ago I sold everything, moved out of my flat and set off around the world.
Nice.
But I went around Europe for 5 months, ran out of money.
And what was this on? This was on
a Cagiva, the Grand Canyon. And so yeah, I lived on a bike 7 days a week for months. I absolutely loved it, but I didn't quite realise the full trip. Ended up getting a job, meeting a girl, living in Italy, then travelling across Australia, and sort of lost track of the fact that I was supposed to be riding around the world. And then I nearly got a job with a Canadian company doing tours and going to Dakar and stuff, and yeah. So
as far as Europe and then everywhere else.
Yes, seems to be you, and the rest is still pending.
Where would you like to travel on a bike?
South America.
South America.
Yeah, what I'm really, really pleased about is that I've spent 10 years procrastinating about following the Dakar Rally through South America, and now it's moved to Saudi Arabia, so...
It'll go back, surely.
But yeah, South America, I could spend a good amount of time there.
Oh, I've sort of crossed over onto Bike Shed Stu's question. If money was no object and work didn't exist anymore, what country would you ride to and on what bike?
I would go to Chile. I think I'd probably try and do it on some retro Dakar thing from the late 90s maybe.
What about one of those TDM 850 Teneres?
I think, do you know what? I think it would have to be. It'd have to be a Sand Raiders-esque.
Yeah. Single or a twin?
Twin.
Twin.
Oh, yeah, but then it'd be heavy. Oh, I don't know.
Chili on
Pass.
something.
Chili on something old and cool.
Who do you admire the most, whether in the biking, automotive world or not?
Oh, I sound really arrogant if I can't think of anyone I admire. I don't know. I can't. There isn't really a standout. In recent times, I'll tell you who is an admirable chap is Billy Munger, the guy who lost both his legs at Donington. Yeah. And then went on to rehabilitate and compete at top level.
Yeah, he's just like 15, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still a kid.
Yeah.
So I'm not really someone that admires people. I don't know. Again, that sounds arrogant, but he would be an exception for the last couple of years at least.
Tell us about your most MacGyver solution to something, and does it still work?
I think most bits have been replaced and fixed. The Cagiva seat is still held on with Velcro.
Nice.
For crash efficiency.
Excellent. What would be the first thing on your wish list of vehicles to ride, drive or pilot that you haven't already?
I've done planes, but I'd like to fly a Spitfire.
A Spitfire.
So if there's like a new age Jimmy Savile who can fix that for me, I'd like to fly a Spitfire, please.
What is your proudest moment?
If I can imagine into the future of when my Yamaha flat tracker may or may not appear in Sideburn magazine, I can imagine being immensely proud of seeing that.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
I'm not sure I want to grow up. The idea really scares me. I don't want to grow up. That's for old people.
How do you curate the bikes for the London show?
So the laborious process starts with a load of submissions coming in. Sit there with a big spreadsheet and look through all the pictures, and the picture has to shout within a couple of seconds either, wow, I really like it, or if I don't like it, and it's usually an immediate I don't like it, would the other people at the show like it, and maybe my taste is just a bit different. So initially I'm selfishly curating the show for me, which seems to have worked out pretty well so far, but also then imagining I'm one of the other 16,000 people coming to the show. What do they want to see? What haven't they seen at another show? And if something's a bit wacky or a bit out there, maybe that would inspire someone else to build a bike.
Next question is from @JOHNATSUPERBIKE, and he would like to know, predict where the trend goes once every air-cooled BMW and CX500 in existence has been modded and people start getting bored.
I don't know if it's the trend, but a trend certainly going towards restoring bikes of that era of 80s and 90s bikes from a pure restoration sense. I know that as the classic car market is softening price-wise, people are piling into bikes. So a trend from an investment perspective will certainly see stock bikes being a thing again. But in terms of custom bikes, I don't think the adventure market has really been tapped properly yet. People I speak to say, oh, I'm building this, and another pizza being delivered at 300 decibels. I think adventure bikes would be where I don't know, well, maybe that's me just wanting the trend to go, but adventure bikes are that sort of last bastion of ugliness that where practicality could easily be morphed into the design.
That's a good one, I like this one. So this question comes from Harry in the shop, and he would like to know, if you could own one bike that has been exhibited at any bike shed show, which one would it be?
It's a bit too tough to answer. There's been 2,000 bikes through the show over the years, and every year I think, oh, that's my favourite, and then the next year I think, oh, and I really like that one, and it changes every year.
It's tough.
So yeah, it's a bit too tough. So sorry, Harry.
Next question comes from @MOTRABOY, and he would like to know, what advice would you give to a casual rider who'd love to start flat track? Where would I start and how?
The simplest place to start is give Pete Boast a call and go up to the Champions flat track school up in Lincolnshire, have a skid around for a day on little 125s, and then just go and get stuck in. Go and speak to the people at DTRA. There's a rookie class. You can turn up as a complete novice and have a go. Do mini bikes for a season, and then see how you go and get stuck in.
What are your thoughts on electric motorcycles?
I think they're fantastic, but I am torn because they sound like shit. And 60% of the reason I enjoy riding a bike is for how it sounds, maybe 70%, maybe more. And to have that taken away means that the rest of the sensations have got to be elevated, and some of the electric bikes I've ridden add in different sensations that you don't get on a regular bike. But there is that slightly dull sensation as well. I need to ride more of them, and I need to ride some of the quicker ones. But whether we as a community like them or not, they're here to stay. They are the future. Internal combustion isn't going to be around for much longer, so we need to embrace it. I just hope the manufacturers can do a better job of giving us bikes that we can use right now. I mean, Alta was such a crying shame that died. I was supposed to be racing one of their bikes 2 years ago in flat track. This year we were going to be doing some off-roading on them. You know, if Honda and Yamaha and Suzuki and Kawasaki can pull their finger out and build something worthy and decent, then that'd be great.
From Mabel, snog, marry, avoid. Vicky Jane Dutch.
Snog, marry, avoid. Vicky Jane Dutch. Well, that's not really very fair, is it?
Shoot, punch, run over. I am Mr. Partridge, Mobro Ben, Mark Hauer.
Shoot, punch, or run over?
Yeah.
What sort of gun have I got?
A big one.
Could I line them up and shoot all three of them? Would it go through? Then I could save the running over. I could run Jane over with the saved run over, couldn't I?
This is from @Anadumpe, And she wants to know, how come you know the words to every Vanilla Ice song?
Because it was one of the first albums, the first album I ever bought on cassette, in whatever that was, 91 or something. And then when I was at university, I found in the local fruit and veg shop the full Vanilla Ice to the Extreme LP or vinyl for 20p. So I bought that along with my fruit and veg and listened to it, and I don't know why it stuck. Doesn't come out very often though.
This is a question I want to know the answer to, and it's from John at Superbike. Was the GT40 lock-stop save at the Cafe Racer Cup more or less of a fluke than the high side of your Honda riding around the shed when it was a shell of a building?
The high side was more of a fluke because I didn't really know what was happening until after it had happened. Whereas at least the GT40 spin, I could feel it happening, and I put some stuff in place to make sure it wasn't a disaster. But yeah, the Honda one was just, I was a passenger.
The GT40, was it deliberate?
No,
No.
no, it wasn't deliberate. The save was deliberate, but the start of it, no.
Here's another question from John at Superbike.
Greedy John.
And he wants to know, did you ever make use of those worn knee sliders you borrowed from me?
The ones from the R3 launch. I think only one side was, I wouldn't say worn, there was a slight scuff, maybe it bashed a wall or something while I was trying to get round the back of the bike. But no, I didn't end up using them in the end. But thanks, John. Cheers.
What else floats your boat other than bikes? What are your hobbies and interests?
I like Sudoku, grooming poodles, and making soup, chunky vegetable soup. Sorry, Tom, to answer that one seriously. I'm such a loser. All I seem to do is fuck around with bikes. Either riding them, fixing them, talking about them, or writing about them, or racing them badly.
About van life?
I do like a bit of camping and exploring and adventuring. I like making stuff, MacGyvering, building stuff. Yeah, so a hobby would, if I made more time for it, would be building stuff.
Okay.
Houses and cabins and workshops and things. I sound fucking boring and one-dimensional, don't I? Food's nice.
Food's nice.
I like food.
What's the best UK bike event?
Kickback. Well, I quite like the MotoGP. Quite like Speedway GP at Cardiff, but it's got to be Bike Shed Show, surely.
Yeah. At Donny777 Music wants
yeah.
to know, have you ever owned a bike that you didn't crash?
I haven't actually crashed that often. It's only the flat tracky stuff that's made me crash. I mean, touch wood, hope there's wood in this sofa. Road bikes, I stay upright and sensible.
So, tell us about your biggest crash.
The one at Greenfield, you mean?
Yeah. Was that the one where you were?
So I'd had a good season, won the championship, got invited to this open race, end of the season closer, and I've got this thing where I don't see the point in using the brakes going into the first corner because you're not going fast enough. I think I may be the only person who thinks like this, and I did my trademark running into the back of someone and clipped him. His bike was a pretty heavy one, I think, and it didn't move. I went over the top, landed on my head, knocked myself out, snapped that finger, and I don't actually remember a huge amount of that day or or the crash itself, but apparently the air ambulance was ready to go, had his blades are spinning, but came to, so they called that off. Got stuck in an ambulance, went to the hospital for CAT scans and x-rays and all of that jazz. Thinking that I should have been in a neck brace and a backboard and all the rest of it, and wasn't, like got out with all of my leathers and everything. And I decided that the service was so bad that after 2 hours of scans and checks and consultants, I snuck out of the hospital with all my leathers in a bag. So in my pants and my motocross boots, called a taxi, got a taxi back to George's, which I didn't really realise at the time, but it's nearly an hour's drive. Got the taxi into the paddock, and I said to the taxi driver, I've left my money in the van, I need to go and get it. So I hobbled across this field, feeling completely and utterly broken, got to my van, went back, gave the man his money, went back to my van, and it's sort of 2 o'clock in the morning by now, and I had nowhere to sleep, and because of the proximity to all the other vans, I didn't want to put the airbed pump on and wake everyone up. So with broken ribs, a smashed head, I sat there with a double airbed going, trying to blow it up.
Oh,
so I did that for
dude.
about half an hour to get, and then just lay there till the morning, and then drove myself home one-handed the next day, and then ended up collapsing into another hospital when I got back.
Oh man.
That was my dramatic big one.
Ouch.
But at least I'm not dead.
Absolutely.
Or brain damaged. Well, I hope you like the videos on our YouTube channel. Maybe not this one, but if you do, like and subscribe. Where is it, Dan? Here somewhere. And you get notifications of when the latest ones are published. What is it? Tuesdays and Fridays. So yeah, click it here and it'll be straight in your inbox.